Hello, Knicks family. Welcome to my channel, Dope Soul Sports Talk, a member of the NBK Network. Today, I want to give you my individual takes on the Marc Berman interview that was on the Nothing But Knicks channel with Simeon Russell. Shout out to Sim and the work he's doing over there. We did an interview, or he did an interview with Marc Berman from the New York Post. Me, a few others were part of the panel. He said some interesting things. He talked a little bit about Randall, made an interesting point about IQ, RJ, Obi. These were all his points. Obviously, when you're on a show like that, you have to give the guest the floor. You ask a question, you lay back, you listen to what he has to say. But this is my opportunity to give my takes on what Marc Berman of the New York Post said yesterday on the NBK interview. That link is in the description if you want to watch the entire show. So let's get to it. The first thing he said was that the New York Knicks are not actively shopping Julius Randle. If someone comes to them with a good deal, obviously they'll take a look at it. If it's good enough, they'll pull the trigger, but they're not actively shopping him. They are aware of his leadership issues. They are aware of his emotionality issues. And that's a good point. At least it's not something that flew over their head. They did see it. They see it as a concern. They were disappointed in him. But at this point, they are not shopping him. I'm okay with that. As you know, I like Julius Randle. There are parts of his game that are inefficient, and I'm not blinded by the 20-10-5, but you can't deny the talent. You just can't. That being said, his decision-making, it offensively, it's just some things need to be shored up. I'll get to the emotional leadership issue separate, but my thought on the matter is there's a way that the Knicks can construct this roster so that Julius Randle is not the main focal point. And then I also think that it's up to the coaching staff to let him know this is how we're going to be running the offense. You know, I don't think he should be the one, this idea like, oh, he's not going to listen. Oh, he's not going to do it. That's on the coaching staff to let him know, listen, this is how we're running the offense this upcoming season. You're not going to be the main playmaker. You're not going to be the main facilitator. You're going to be in your spot. We're going to bring in somebody or start quickly, whoever it is. They are going to run the show. Now, him bringing the ball up the court is not that big a deal. I don't get the issue with that. There are many players who bring the ball up the court. When they get over half court, they pass it to someone. That's totally fine. I don't have an issue with it. It's him facilitating and running the offense where his decision-making is not good, or even when he does make a good decision, the pass is like a torpedo, you know? So the Knicks, I feel like if they keep Randle, it's totally fine, in my opinion. Just talking about his game right now, it's just about putting him in the right decisions to succeed. Taking away playmaking responsibilities, get to your spot. You're going to get you the ball in your spot for you to do what you do. That's it. His assist totals may go down, but still, if he's doing what he's supposed to do, he's going to command a double team. He can get his assist that way. He does not have to command the offense and be the lead point of the offense. So I'm okay in terms of his game, because remember, even prior to this emotional flare-up, if you want to call it that, a good part of the fan base had issues with his game and how inefficient it was and his poor decision-making and just how he played. That's what I'm addressing. The Knicks have to address that as well, not just the leadership issues. He has to play a different way on any team. He's an alpha in terms of his mentality, basketball-wise, but he's not a first option on a championship team. He's just not. And I think even on this team, we need to share the wealth. And it's not just about the youth coming up and they got to have their time. It's not even about that. Even if we don't make any changes, it has to be more of an equal opportunity offense, because Randall's just not that guy for him to be getting so many shots and have such a high usage rate. I think if this team doesn't change much, the usage rates, we need to spread it out a little bit more. Now, in terms of his leadership and his, half-assing it on defense, playing when he wants to play, not playing at other times. That has given me major pause when it comes to Julius Randle. And that's why if a deal comes across the table and the Knicks pull the trigger, I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. Because what I saw from Julius Randle this season is a guy you can't trust when things get tough. A guy that's too wrapped up in the fan base. You know what I mean? And I get it. It must be disheartening for him. It must be uncomfortable to have the fan base on him the way, that we are. But it is what it is. And you got to get to a place where it's not impacting your game. Same thing happened with Carmelo. He still balled out. Same thing happened with Patrick Ewing. He still balled out. I'm sure they didn't like it, but they never let on that they didn't. And I didn't see anyway, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong down in the chat, I didn't see a lot of difference in Carmelo Anthony's game. I didn't see a lot of difference in Patrick Ewing's game when they tore up the posters and threw it, on the floor. He came out every game, and it was about him and his team and what he needed to do. That's not where Julius Randle is. And I really think the relationship with the fans is getting to him. He can't hold himself together when it comes to the officials as well. He's melting down like a crayon on a hot radiator. We can't have that. We just can't have it. So if the Knicks move on from Julius Randle, I'm fine. Now, his value is the lowest it's ever been. This may not be the right time to move him. So I believe he's going to come into next season and he's going to have that opportunity to shore up his leadership skills, to shore up his emotionality, and the Knicks will have an opportunity to construct the roster a little different. And if they don't, let him know the role that he has in the offense. Some of that is on the coaching staff as well, because trust and believe, if Tibbs is out next year or whenever, and they bring in another coach, they are not going to allow Randle to play the way he's playing right now in terms of facilitating. Okay? So that's on the coaching staff to take care of that. The number 2 point Marc Berman made was that the Knicks are searching for an up 4-point guard, trying to improve that position, and that if we see IQ at the point guard next season, it's because their plans fell through. I'm not disappointed in that. I like Quickly. I said from the beginning, I believe he can grow into a point guard. I'm just not so sure next year is the year for him. I still think he needs a little more growing and a little more seasoning as far as his shot selection and decision-making is concerned. However, if the Knicks decided to rock with him at that point guard position, I'm okay with it. But if there are better options available, let's rock with that better option. The other thing Berman said regarding IQ is that he, not the Knicks, maybe not the Knicks, but he sees him as someone coming off the bench, as a change of pace guy, a scoring guy that can play both the point guard and shooting guard position. He doesn't necessarily see him as a starting point guard. That's his position. That's his, that's his position on it. Me, I think down the line, he probably could play the point guard position. And that his floor would be what Berman said, coming off the bench, change of pace guy, instant offense, play the point guard, play the 2 guard. That's the floor. But I think his ceiling would be being a starting point guard in this league. My only issue is I'm not sure next year is the year to do it. And listen, there's nothing wrong with coming off the bench. You can still grow coming off the bench. He'll still be, now if the Knicks really want to get him those reps, make him the backup point guard. Get off of Derrick Rose. If you don't feel comfortable with IQ at the point guard, you want to bring in somebody else, but yet you still believe in him, you still want to develop him that way, get off of Derrick Rose so that he can play that backup point guard position. Let's see what happens. The third thing he said was Mitch is as good as gone if he makes it to free agency. The Knicks has until June 30th to sign Mitchell Robinson. Obviously, it takes 2 to tangle. The Knicks have to offer. Mitch has, and his camp have to accept. I'm okay either way with Mitchell Robinson. I think there's 2 ways to look at it. One, he hasn't developed that much from year to year, still averaging about 8+ points, 8+ rebounds. I think that was the same thing last year as well. What I will say about Mitchell Robinson this year is you saw flashes of what his ceiling could be. He had monster games, point wise, rebound wise, block wise, just being a disruptor, where I thought that, listen, he doesn't ever develop a jump shot. The way he can disrupt and play on the defensive end is enough. Sign that man. Then the next game or so, he'll come out and he'll look rather pedestrian, So, I could see the Knicks saying, you know what? The flashes we saw, we think he can still get there and make those flashes more consistent. He just needs a little more time, and we're going to give it to him, and they sign him. I can also see them saying, you know what? We're going to cut our losses right here. No, well, actually not losses. They only played him 1.8, 1.6, $1.2 million, each year over the last 4 years. But I can see them saying, he hasn't developed significantly from year to year to year. He just completed his 4th year. I just don't think we want to invest money in Mitchell Robinson. We think there are cheaper options out there for what he does and for what he brings. And I can understand both points. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with Mitchell Robinson. I'm on board whether he goes or whether he stays. I think the other thing he talked about was RJ Barrett. In his opinion, he sees Barrett as a future all-star, but not a superstar. He felt that, because of his free throw shooting, he doesn't think he will ever be a really good shooter or a knockdown shooter. And he doesn't think the Knicks should pay him the max. And I think the last thing he said is that if the Knicks want to trade for a superstar or star, Donovan Mitchell or someone else, that RJ Barrett is probably going to have to be in that trade. Now, I didn't have any issues with anything he said. I do think RJ Barrett will be an all-star, maybe even make multiple all-star appearances. I don't see him as a superstar. Can he be a star? I think he can. I think the path forward for Barrett is getting better at converting at the rim. That's his bread and butter. Last season, he took 64% of his shots between the rim and the short mid-range, and he did not convert at a very good percentage compared to those that play the same position that he plays. So I think if he gets better at that, I don't think you have to change your bread and butter. That's your bread and butter. That's where you like to shoot. No problem. Just get better at it and shoot it at a high clip. And the higher the clip he can shoot it at, the better he can be. If he wants to get into the star conversation, then obviously you're hitting those shots at a very high clip. Well, obviously, if you're playing that close to the basket, you're going to get fouled. So you need to be a really good foul shooter. Otherwise, when you come in there, they're not going to allow you to finish at a high rate. They're just going to foul you so you can go to the line. They're going to take their chances at the line. Now, he was 73%. That's not bad. But if he can get it up to 76, 78, 80%, now we're talking. And I think the last thing in terms of him rounding into a star is to be decent from the three-point line. Right now, he's shooting 36%, which is decent. Stay there or improve. My comparison for him is Jimmy Butler. I know a lot of fans may not think Jimmy Butler is a star. I do. He takes most of his shots in the mid-range as well. He's not a very good three-point shooter. He shot better in years past. This past year, though, I think he's only shot in the regular season. I think he shot 24%. RJ Barrett shoots much better than that. So if you got RJ Barrett finishing at the rim and in the short mid-range, shooting respectively from the three-point line, along with what he already has, playmaking skills, the willingness to play the best offensive player on the other team, his rebounding, and all the intangibles, his leadership, his approach to the game, how assertive he is, you have the making of a star. I don't think RJ Barrett is going to be this knockdown shooter from all over the court. Not many players are. Most players have their spots, and they're elite or very good at their spots. What makes them tough is that that's their spot, but you can't knock them off of it. You can't stop them from getting to it. That's what makes them tough. And so for RJ Barrett, again, If the rim and the short mid-range is going to be his preferred spots, then he needs to knock it down at a higher clip. That's all I got today, ladies and gentlemen. My take on the Marc Berman interview on the Nothing But Knicks Network. If you haven't already, please check it out. The link is down in the description. Until next time, Knick family, be easy.